Hello students, welcome again all of you. So students, as you all know, we have started a chapter number 12, Food for All, part 3. So students, do you remember in last lecture what we have learned? We learned about two kinds of fertilizer. First is natural fertilizer that we also call as manure, and second is chemical fertilizer, also called as artificial fertilizer. So as I told you students, in next lecture we will going to learn about the disadvantages of chemical fertilizer. So students, let's begin our further topic of this chapter number 12, food for all. So students, what is the disadvantages of chemical fertilizer? Overuse of chemical fertilizer leads to accumulation of excessive chemicals in the soil. Means if we use more amount of chemical fertilizer, so what will happen? Yes, more chemicals store in the soil, and this will lead to lower fertility of the soil and reduce its productivity, right? And also students, overwatering makes the land saline and fallow. This is seen especially in the parts where water is available in plenty, as for example near dams or near river banks. If land becomes saline and fallow, it has to be tested to find out which substances it lacks. The fertility can be stored by adding these substances. It is a costly and time consuming procedure. Therefore, it is better to avoid excessive use of fertilizers and water. Okay, students? The next topic is protection of crops. So, students, whatever amount of crops we get, we need to protect the crops, right? There are many varieties of pests and insects. They might be attacked on crops, right? As you can see in the picture, when insects, pest, bird attacks, all the crops get damaged, and then farmer get less income. So students, we need to protect the crops getting infected by the pest attack, insects, and by the birds also. So insecticides and pesticides are sprayed on crops. So any insects, if they eat that poisonous pesticide, so they will die immediately. So we use the insecticides and pesticides in agricultural field. So students, now you understood how to protect crops from the insects, right? So tell me how to protect the crops from the insects. Can you tell students? Yes, we need to press insecticides and pesticides on the crops, right? Storing the harvested crop safely is as important as increasing the production. What steps are taken for this, students? What step we need to take to protect the crops safely? Students, we grown the crops, but suppose if they get damaged large amount of crop, we cannot use maximum amount of crop at the same time, right? We need to protect them, store them, right? So in order to protect these grains, we keep for drying under sun. When seeds are dried completely, these dried seeds saved safely. Suppose if seeds are wet, then there is a higher chances of infections, fungal infections and all, right? So that's why storage is the most important in agricultural field. So students, you can see the grains is dried well in sun and they filled in the sacks. Sacks means what? As you can see in the picture. So like this, grains stored in the sack. Okay, and remember one thing, that sack should be dried. Sack should not be wet because moisture absorb and there is a chances of getting fungal infection on the crops. So always remember students, the sack should be dry and seed also should be dried. Okay. Students, do you know, once we packed the sack and then we kept this sack in house or warehouse or shops, etc. You must have seen the sack when you visit in grocery shop. You saw na sack. So these sacks are which are kept in grocery shop, they are already dried well and they kept in it for preservation purpose. Okay. So students, now you understood how we save our grains? Can you tell? Right, by storing them in dry place. So students, stored grain can get damaged in two ways. First is mite, rats and insects can spoil the grains to a great extent. Second is also if the grains is stored in a closed and damp place, it catches fungus and becomes unfit for eating. So students, to prevent such damage by pest, chemicals are sprayed at place of storage or around it. So from getting any kind of infection before keeping the sack in the particular place, we can spray a chemical all around the area. So that wouldn't be any kind of fungal infection in that area. And before packing any kind of material, we can do one more thing. We can mix up the neem leaves. So students, as we all know that neem leaves are made up of bitter taste. So as neem has bitter taste, any kind of insects, any kind of fungal wouldn't grow easily in that sack. Okay. So some protective chemicals that can be mixed with the grain are also available in the market. Their smell repels insects. Storage places are always kept dry and airy to prevent fungal formation. So students, the grain is dried well in the sun and filled in the sack. The sack are then stored in the houses, as you all know. So the place should be dry and airy, okay, to prevent fungal formation. So students, I hope you understood these points, the disadvantages of chemical fertilizer and also protection of crops and storage of grains. So we have done 3 more points in this lecture. So students, in next lecture we will going to learn about the food storage and conservation of environment and the green revolution, food security, agriculture assistance program. Okay, so all these points we will going to learn in next lecture, students. Okay students, so I hope you understood whatever I explained. Thank you.